recording episode 20. Now we're in double amount of times where we have double digits.
Yeah, the big 2-0, John.
Yeah. I feel old. So welcome to the SmartB Sports Update Podcast, episode 20 on this lovely 26th of October, 9 a.m. rainy, terrible day.
How's it going, John?
Oh, fantastic after last night.
Yes.
Just before we kick off, we're going to do our sponsorships.
Yep.
You know, as I said, we sold out. We're taking sponsorships. First sponsor, Winning Edge. Winning Edge Investments provides industry-leading betting tips, advice and education, enabling you to invest intelligently and generate long-term profits by treating your betting as a business. winningedgeinvestments.com. That's actually a good idea to sign up right in time for Melbourne Cup. Get the tips for Melbourne Cup and try and win some money. Bet with your head not over it.
Good time, and John, it's not far away. Is it less than a fortnight to go before the big race?
Yes, it's very exciting. So we have confirmed our guest for the Melbourne Cup Special Edition podcast. That'll happen on a Sunday.
Yep. Looking forward to it, John.
We can learn about betting together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But we can kick off now with the World Cup, which is amazing after last night. Australia continues to break records.
Yep.
Yesterday during the day, I was really worried about this game.
Yeah, a banana skin game, John.
After Pakistan, Afghanistan, I was like, you know, if you just take it off numbers.
Yeah, well, the Netherlands beat South Africa. If you can somehow work that out, John, it's one of the great mysteries of our existence that the Netherlands were able to beat South Africa.
Netherlands beat South Africa after Afghanistan beat England. And so I was like, because Afghanistan beat Pakistan as well, which we'll get to in a minute, but because always Australia first.
Yes.
So after Afghanistan won, I was like, sitting there yesterday going, oh my God, what if history repeats and Netherlands wins again?
I was a little bit worried when Mitch Marsh, it was a terrible shot he played to get out for 9, John. An absolute brain explosion. Yeah. With a lot of these batsmen, you just thought the only way they're going to get out is getting themselves out, and Mitch Marsh did just that. I was a bit worried about it.
I was watching this and I just thought, well, this is the thing, right? So Mitch Marsh has had one good game in the past, like 10 for Australia. It was the last match.
Well, he could be, and we'll get into this game, obviously, John, but when Travis Head comes back...
So Travis Head could have been back. I was reading yesterday. Travis Head could have been back yesterday, actually. But, Netherlands is a lighter game, so it's pretty much confirmed Travis Head will be back in next week.
The game against New Zealand on Saturday, John? So well, that's great news, isn't it? So they've won 3 games in a row without him. So since that really slow start to the tournament, it's been a great recovery by Australia. We've got to give credit where credit's due. They just had to get the job done against the Netherlands. They did that, and they did it resoundingly, John. You could say that again.
If you remember, like a week ago, we were saying Travis Head isn't going to come back in and solve all their problems. Thank God they've solved most of their problems right now, except for their opening batsman.
Yeah, that's right.
He's going to come in and solve their last problem.
That's the thing, John. David Warner, he's just in sensational form. 104, 93 balls. Steve Smith supported him. Marnus Labuschagne supported him. 71 for Smith, 62 for Labuschagne. And that knock by your man at the end of the innings, John. Glenn Maxwell, 106 off 44 balls. Hit 8 sixes in the innings, John. Extraordinary. Extraordinary hitting.
When watching that, I was like, man, if only he could have come in earlier.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, he probably should have gone in ahead of Inglis, right, at that time. But anyway, it probably didn't matter too much.
Nobody knew.
And Inglis only lasted 12 balls anyway, John. So it's not like he took up, too many of the balls that Maxwell couldn't face. But he is rocks or diamonds, your man, isn't he? Out first ball in the previous game, and in this game he blasts 106 off 44 balls.
That's why you love him, right? Like,
yeah.
Because he'll do that nonsense where you just like, what the hell? Like a record-breaking century, and then next week it'll be like, what the hell?
But that's why you pick him, right? You pick him because you hope that when he has an off day, others will be there to do the job.
Exactly.
And you hope that on his day, he'll come to the party and make a contribution. Exactly. And in this game, he absolutely did. John, I checked the Netherlands' highest team total of the tournament's only 262. So when Australia posted 8 for 399 from the 50 overs, it was done and dusted, John. The game was over. They were never a chance of chasing it. Netherlands bowled out for 90 in 21 overs, John. I know the opposition are not great, but you got to give credit to the Australians there, John. Great effort.
We've been talking about Netherlands hasn't been losing poorly.
And they beat South Africa as well.
And they beat South Africa, but then...
I think this is the worst they've been beaten up in the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, this is the worst anyone has because it was all out for 90. No one's not posted triple digits.
And 309 run margin at the end of the day. I mean, So...
And that's one of the highlights of all the reports this morning. It's like they lost by 309 runs. Don't worry about the wickets. Like the wickets are irrelevant.
That's right, John. Adam Zampa's come to the party. He's come to life, John, all of a sudden. 4 for 8.
Since he stopped singing the national anthem, so keep going, bro.
Well done to him. And the Aussies are making an impression on the stats sheet now, John, for the tournament.
Now they're in 4th, right? And they're in 4th on the ladder. This round hasn't finished. There's still one game to play, which is tonight, which we previewed on Monday, the Sri Lanka versus England, and Australia's now jumped to 4th.
4th on the table, John.
Just a week ago, we were lamenting their death at 10th out of 10, and now they're 4th out of 10 in just like 3 matches.
Yeah, we do still have to keep in mind that, John, in all likelihood, you need to win 6 of your games to get through. So they've won 3 and lost 2. They're halfway there. But there's 4 games to go, John. They still need to win 3 of those. So while we're impressed by this turnaround, there is no room for complacency here, John.
Oh, not at all.
And that's the thing. The game against, we'll get to it in a little bit, but the game against New Zealand on Saturday will be tricky. We'll get to a preview of that a little bit later on. But yeah, these all of a sudden, John, David Warner's now the 3rd highest run scorer for the tournament, out of nowhere. Remember we were saying that there were no Australians in the top 25 run scorers for the tournament?
They were in nothing.
Now David Warner's the 3rd highest run scorer of the tournament. And now Adam Zampa is, if you can believe it, John, the leading wicket taker for this tournament. Extraordinary.
Yep.
It's amazing when you start getting some individuals who really perform. You start to shoot up that table, John.
Yeah, so Dave Warner sits in the highest scores. He's second highest scores, 3rd in
runs. And he's got the 2nd highest score of the tournament with that 163 he made earlier in the tournament.
Adam Zampa, number 1 wicket taker.
Leading wicket taker, 13 wickets. He's gone ahead of Mitchell Santner from New Zealand, who's got
4th
12.
in best bowling figures as well. What a 3-game... Mitch Marsh with the 2nd best bowling average.
What a turnaround, John. What a turnaround. Haven't the Australians really turned the tournament on its head with their turnaround in form, John?
And then you've got, in the most hundreds, you've got Dave Warner at 2nd, Glenn Maxwell at 3rd, tied with a whole bunch of people, and Mitch Marsh. Mitch Marsh? Oh, because he's got 1. Yeah, it's most hundreds is not very...
One's better than none, right?
It's crazy. It's 4 games to go. They've had 4 games to go. You can't... The matches Australia's still got to have is New Zealand, obviously, is a difficult one. They still got to play Afghanistan.
New Zealand, then England, then Afghanistan, as you said, and Bangladesh. So Afghanistan and Bangladesh are absolute lock-ins, John. No slip-ups in those games. Must win. And then so you got to win one of the 2 against New Zealand and England.
Well, we'll see how England is tonight. That's...
I mean, you'd have to, at this stage, John, you'd have to favour Australia to beat England right at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how if England can actually turn it around, because England still sits 8th on the ladder after 4 matches. They have to play their 5th before we get the actual end of the round table. And it's possible for... They're only ahead of Bangladesh on net run rate of 0.005. No, 0.005. So England could potentially drop below Bangladesh tonight to 9th.
And that big win by Australia, it's really done wonders for their net run rate as well, 100%. John. They're now well and truly in the positive on that one, and they were in the negative before last night's game. And now they're, plus 1.142, I think it says there, John. So that's a huge turnaround of their net run rate. Everything counts, John. Everything counts.
Yeah.
You want a good net run rate. You want to be winning games. They're just ticking all the boxes at the moment, the Australians.
Beat New Zealand, it will be a difficulty to jump them to 3rd, actually, because New Zealand's net run rate is plus 1.481, unless they fully smash New Zealand, which they're not going to do. They're not going to do an Australia to Netherlands on New Zealand.
New Zealand are a very good side, John.
So they're not going to jump to third, but they'll stay in fourth. Like, no matter what, they'll stay in fourth if they beat New Zealand. The only team that... Yeah, on Saturday, so Sri Lanka, England tomorrow, and I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but Australia versus New Zealand on Saturday. So at least until Saturday, Australia will definitely be 100% certain to stay in fourth. And then it's possible for them to jump to third. And then we'll breathe a big sigh of relief.
Australia certainly in control of their own destiny here, John. They win 3 of their last 4. They're there. They're locked into the semis. Lock it in, Eddie.
There's no reason out of those 4 they can't beat England at this point in time. England, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. So
Bangladesh and Afghanistan, look, surely they get those done, John. It's all about winning one of the 2 against England and New Zealand. You'd have to think at this stage, John, they're going to beat England. But we will have a closer look at those games as they get a bit closer.
Yeah, we'll know more on Saturday. Actually, Sri Lanka and England is tonight. Australia versus New Zealand is Saturday, so we'll know more on Saturday.
Interesting times in this tournament, John.
Yeah,
we're at an interesting
just a week
stage.
ago we were singing their
their demise.
Yeah, writing their obituary.
Yeah,
sitting in 10th. and then bang! Wow. Okay. Got any more on Australia?
I was just having a look at the standings here, John. You'd have to think. I find it really hard to see at this stage, and again, we're only about midway through this tournament. I find it really hard to see how that top 4 is going to change at this point in time, John. India, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia is where it is at the moment. I'm finding it difficult to see how any of those sides outside the 4 at this stage are going to force their way into it.
No, so up until last night, Pakistan... Well, was it last night? The night before. Yeah, the night before. Pakistan was our danger, right? Like, Pakistan was the other one that could take Australia's spot. But, Pakistan versus Afghanistan, Afghanistan had their best showing for the World Cup ever. It's only the 3rd time they've ever won.
They've won 2 games, John.
Yeah, third match ever they've ever won in a World Cup, and 2 of them were in this tournament.
This is an amazing performance, John.
Pakistan set a target of 282. And I was like, well... They definitely think they have it, and everybody in the world thinks they have it. At the time, the odds were like ridiculous. They were like it was like Afghanistan had blown out to like $9 or something. Yeah. And then just nope. And even the bookmakers during that match, because odds fluctuate during the match. During the match, it wasn't getting much different, like even up until the last ball was bowled, Afghanistan wasn't that far away from Pakistan's odds. Yeah. Because nobody even like I said, 282. There's no chance Afghanistan's going to chase down 282. And then, well, it happened. Yeah. It was so weird.
Yeah, so we segue into that game now, John, that Pakistan Afghanistan. So 7 for 282 and 50 overs, as you said, John. Skipper Babar Azam top scored with 74. Noor Ahmad took 3 for 49 from 10 overs for Afghanistan. Afghanistan, as you said, John, 2 for 286 in reply from 49 overs. Opener Ibrahim Zadran made 87. He top scored, was man of the match, John. Afghanistan won by 8 wickets with 6 balls to spare. As we say, it's the 3rd shock result of the tournament, John. Afghanistan also beating England and the Netherlands beating South Africa. I'll tell you what, John, I don't know what the Netherlands were paying to beat South Africa, but if you had a decent amount of money on that, you could buy a property at Kirribilli.
$14 at the time, remember?
Yeah,
that was seriously. The longest odds. Yeah, so throughout that Afghanistan-Pakistan match, throughout the match, Afghanistan started the week at like $3.50 or whatever, and they stayed at $3.45, $3.60, $3.45 all the way up until the end of the match. Whereas Pakistan was paying like $1.37, $1.37, $1.36, $1.25. Blew out to $7.20 at one point during the match, but then reined it in and went and finished at $3.85. So even when that was the takeover point. Afghanistan dropped to 345 and Pakistan 385. Even when Afghanistan was chasing that target down, Bookmakers still didn't really think that Afghanistan had a really high chance of winning. It never went down to like, well, they've got this. Here's $1. It's going to pay $1. It was like, because that 282 target was just, it was seemingly impossible. They were climbing.
For them,
they were climbing Mount Everest with no equipment and no Sherpas to help them, and they did it.
It's a David and Goliath result, John.
It was crazy, yeah. And that was another one of those ones where I wake up because I checked the scores before I went to bed, and Pakistan had already finished and posted their 282. I was like, oh, well, they've got it. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, no, refresh. Let me check. Surely there's a data issue here. There's no way Afghanistan chased this down. This is what the whole World Cup's been.
An interesting little side note on this game too, John. I don't know. I was flicking through Instagram as I do to check out the great SmartB Instagram page, John. And Rashid Khan, the Afghanistan bowler, he was caught by the TV cameras warming up, bowling with 2 balls in his hand at the same time. I've never seen that before. Flicking 2 balls at the same time in one hand.
That's a party trick.
That's a party trick if ever you've seen it.
It'd be great if you
I know, even the great Shane Warne I never saw do that.
It'd be great if you could do it and make them bounce 2 different directions, then bounce back in and touch each other or something like that. You know, soccer has all the footwork stuff that everybody does with all the highlights. Why not? What can you get out of cricket? A guy who bowls 2 balls with one hand. I don't even think I could hold 2 balls in one hand, to be honest.
Let alone bowl with them.
Yeah, as soon as I move my hand, they'd fall out. I'm going to try it later.
I should have brought them in, John, and done it on the camera. But anyway.
To do it. We'll get producer John to film us trying.
Yeah.
Looking like fools. Definitely wouldn't be able to get them to go. So, yeah, there was... What other games were there? Oh.
South Africa and Bangladesh, John?
Yeah, this went pretty much as expected. South Africa's form with the bat is...
What about that innings by Quinton de Kock? 174 from 140 balls, 15 fours and 7 sixes. It's a great recovery from them. They ended up 5 for 382 from the 50 after they were 2 for 36 at one point there, John.
So 382, we just talked about 282 is an impossible target for Afghanistan. 382 is an impossible target for Bangladesh. South Africa's form with the bat is beyond ridiculous right now. They've well and truly showed that Netherlands loss was a hiccup.
It's just one of those, as I said, one of the great mysteries of our existence, John. The result of that go.
It'll be something that Back to the Future reference. Using Gray's Sports Almanac. Biff will go back and bet on that one. Showing our age. And
John, you could see a UFO could come to Earth with an alien species, and you still wouldn't be as shocked as you were with the Netherlands beating South Africa.
And South Africa have now leapt up into second spot on the ladder, at least temporarily. But, because they've won 4, lost 1, their net run rate is plus 2.370. Their form with the bat is beyond ridiculous.
You talk about the form with the bat, John. Heinrich Klaassen made 90 from 49 balls, John. That's almost a strike rate of 200. He hit 8 sixes. He made 100. He backed that up after making that 100 against England as well, John. Skipper Aidan Markram, he's always chipping in, John. He made 60 himself. In reply, Bangladesh all out for 233 from 46.4 overs. That's not a bad effort for them, really. 200-plus score. But South Africa won by 149 runs. Of course, de Kock, man of the match, John. So he is the leading run scorer for the tournament with 407 runs. His 174 in this game is the highest score of the tournament. He's hit the most fours for the tournament with 39. He's hit the equal second most sixes for the tournament with 15, along with teammate Klaassen. They're 2 behind Rohit Sharma with 17. The 174 was his 3rd century of the World Cup. He scored 300s in just 5 games, John. Made 100 off 84 balls against Sri Lanka and 109 off 106 against Australia as well. South Africa hit 144 from the last 10 overs of their innings, John. It's staggering numbers.
Just went 20-20.
Yeah, exactly. So South Africa, 4 wins from 5, and they're only defeat was that shock loss to the Netherlands, as we've talked about, John. Extraordinary numbers.
As you said, he's leading the run scorers with 407 runs for the tournament. Second is Virat Kohli, who's a massive 53 runs behind. 53.
There you go.
Virat Kohli is averaging, because Virat Kohli is averaging 118 versus Quinton de Kock's 81.4. I think that might come down to the fact that India has been just outpacing. They've been finishing too early.
Yeah, that's right. He hasn't had enough. He hasn't been able to bat enough overs to get or have enough runs to chase to make a run. That's the thing. If your bowlers are that good, it can sort of work against you as a batsman. It can restrict your opportunities to score.
He's only chasing 199 and 185 and stuff like that. So what can he do? But still, Quinton de Kock is ridiculous. 53 points, 53 runs ahead of that second place. Virat Kohli, when Virat Kohli is averaging 118 for the tournament. 118 itself, in and of itself, is a ridiculous average. Absolutely unheard of. But, it's just that Quinton de Kock's, they're setting stupid targets. And you have the kind of opposite with them versus India, Like, South Africa's tending to bat first and set ridiculous targets. So the 382 against Bangladesh, 399 against England. And see, Netherlands actually, so here's the thing, Netherlands bat first against South Africa and beat them. So could this be their Achilles heel? Because against Australia, they set the 311 target, and it's only Netherlands that has batted first against South Africa. 428 against Sri Lanka, So you want to take down South Africa, bat first.
There you go. It's not rocket science, is it, John?
Yeah.
The only bad news really for South Africa is that de Kock has said this will be his last major one-day tournament. And John, that 174, he very nearly became just the third batsman ever to score a World Cup double century. So, but Bangladesh in that chase, John, they collapsed to 5 for 58, recovered to make 233. Mahmudullah hit a runner ball 111 for them. But they were never going to chase down the total, John. No other Bangladesh batsman made more than 22, so Mahmudullah played a lone hand there, John.
Yeah. Well, that's because South Africa's not going so bad with the ball either. But I think actually, I've only just realised that. So Netherlands was the only team that bat first against South Africa. So
you're onto something, John.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. I see India versus South Africa would be really, really interesting. Actually, because South Africa wants to bat first, and India wants to bat second.
November 5, John, lock it in.
Yeah, that's going to be
Get your popcorn ready for that one.
South Africa wants to bat first. India wants to bat second, so they both want to do what they want to do. And
that will be an absolute blockbuster, John. Yeah. That is you can't miss that one.
So that's in
November 5. India v South Africa at Eden Gardens, Kolkata. That'll be full. That'll be packed to the rafters, John.
And I'm sure the Indian groundskeepers won't do anything to the pitch.
Oh yeah. No, they'd never do such a thing, John.
In such a danger game.
No way. They always act with the utmost integrity, John. They would never do such a thing.
This is one of those things where the India's now defending it by saying, instead of saying we're not doing it, they're saying everybody does it.
I don't know if they quite do it to the same extent, John. But anyway,
nobody does it like that.
No,
they just do it best.
Yes, they do.
So Sri Lanka England is tonight, obviously. Mm-hmm. We've already talked.
We have talked about that. Yeah.
We'll just do a quick odds check for that.
Yeah.
So how do I go to today? I know what I can do. I can just click here and then click here. England's currently paying $1.37 to Sri Lanka's $4.20.
So the punters think England are going to bounce back in a big way here, John.
Yep. Now we do have a wagering partner. As always, bet with your head, not over it. Elite Bet is our preferred partner for it's not quite November, but for the month of November and leading into the Melbourne Cup especially. So Elite Bet's odds for England are $1.26, with Sri Lanka at $3.80. You got to say that England gets this. We said that the other day, and you got to continue to say it.
Yeah, well, as you say, John, I think that they've only won 1 out of their 4 games so far, England. So this is absolute must-win for them.
They have to win every match. We know they're not going to make the...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They've won 1 out of 4. They only play 9 games. You need to get to 6 to make the semis. So, yeah, they have to win every game. England lose this game, they're gone, John. Some of us are
I wouldn't,
pretty happy about it.
Yeah, 100%. They'll definitely whinge about it. But I wouldn't... I wouldn't... You know, I think we discussed it on Monday. I wouldn't look past that $4.20 or $3.80 with Elite Bet.
You reckon there's something in that, John?
Yeah, because England's form is shocking, and they must know that they have to win all of them, and so that would be definitely playing in their mind, like giving them a lot of nerves. I definitely won't watch it though. Tomorrow there's Pakistan, South Africa, which is going to be I just really can't wait to see what kind of target South Africa sets.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine what it's going to be, John. 400 would be in their sights for sure. So
South Africa's currently paying $1.57 with Betfair best odds, and smartb.com.au for all your odds. $3.05 for Pakistan's with BetRight. Our elite bet check is $1.50 with South Africa. That's not a bad bet actually. I wouldn't.
You can't back against South Africa in this game, John. You can't do it. They're red hot.
We're death riding Pakistan as Australian fans all the way to the bottom of the ladder. So
that's the thing. We don't care where Australia comes in the top 4 as long as they make the top 4. Just make the top 4. That's your goal. Yeah. Do we want to do the Australia-New Zealand Saturday?
Yeah. So here's the thing about Australia-New Zealand. We'll just do the odds. Australia is currently favourites.
Right.
So they are currently paying $1.66 with Unibet, while New Zealand is paying $2.75 with BetRight. Our preferred wagering partner, Elite Bet, is $1.60 for Australia, $2.34 for New Zealand. I don't know why Australia is favourites, to be honest.
I can give you some numbers if you want, John. New Zealand have won 4, lost 1 after 5 games. Great start to the tournament for them. And I know this doesn't sound as good, John. David Warner's altered this statistic with his innings overnight or last night. So New Zealand now has 3 run scorers in the top 11 for the tournament, not top 10. Thanks, David Warner, for ruining my stat here. Rachin Ravindra has 290 runs. He's 6th for the tournament on that list. Daryl Mitchell has 268 runs. He's 8th on the list for the tournament. Devon Conway, 11th on the list with 249 runs for the tournament. And they have 2 wicket takers in the top 5 for the tournament, John. Mitch Santner has 12 wickets. He's 2nd. Thanks, Adam Zampa, for now being 1st and moving him off top spot. And Matt Henry has 10 wickets for the tournament, and he's 5th on the list, John. New Zealand are all over these top run scoring, top wicket taking stats. I'd be very wary of this game if I was Australia, John.
I don't know why Australia is such heavy favourites, you know, $1.60 with a lead.
But you wouldn't touch the $1.60. No, you just wouldn't touch it in a million years, John.
It might be the kind of thing where you chuck a multi on with some just for the favourites. $5 on a multi to win $20 or something like that. But Australia would be the one that broke it, I would say. I can't understand why they're the favourites. New Zealand's definitely been in way better form. Even over the past 3 weeks, and New Zealand's only lost to India, who are currently ridiculous.
Yeah, so Elite Bet's got New Zealand 234, is that right, John?
Yeah.
So was there some other... I think you mentioned there was another odds where they were 275, is that right? Another market?
BetRight has about 275.
Yeah, you'd be looking at that 275 pretty closely.
An outright bet on New Zealand is not a bad idea to cover your multi that you chuck Australia into. What are you really gambling with?
Yeah, bet with your head, not over it, everybody.
So then...
The other game on Saturday, John, Netherlands v Bangladesh. The Netherlands will be... I know it was an expected result, John, but they'll be bruised by how badly Australia beat up on them.
Yeah, so Bangladesh heavy favourites at $1.37.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And Netherlands paying $3.10 with Elite Bet. I think this is my player to watch, Bastilleed's time to shine. He hasn't been... Leading into the tournament, he was batting and bowling very well. You know, he did the double 5. I think this is his game to go out and like show that he's the quality of player that he is, and he can lead Netherlands to a win on this one. I know they got smashed by Australia just last night. In cricket, 3 days is a long time.
It is, and you want to bounce back, John. Didn't have the best game against Australia. Out for 4 with the bat. And he took 2 wickets with the ball, but he went for 115 in 10 overs, John. Jeez, they really got hold of him, the likes of Maxwell and David Warner.
Yeah, so Netherlands. This is Netherlands. You know, one of the things that I'm really interested in now is where Netherlands and Afghanistan finished. Now Afghanistan's won 2, Netherlands can win 2, and then we'll see where they finish. I'm like, they're obviously going to, in theory, finish on the bottom of the ladder together, or maybe England will. Because then we come to Sunday, and India versus England. England's tournament is about to be paved with hellfire and death, actually. So
that's one way of putting it.
They have to play India, okay, on Sunday. And then their next match is Australia.
I fear for England in that game against India, John.
Yeah, that's going to stick them to the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah.
They can beat Sri Lanka, right, tonight, and then they've got to play India, followed by Australia, and then they got Netherlands. Like as we've discussed, England need to win all of their matches. They've got tonight against Sri Lanka, who are a flip of the coin, and then they've got to play India, then Australia, and then they're left with Netherlands, which they should comfortably beat, but, in their current form. And what happens to them over the course of India versus Australia could really cause them to be like Netherlands' next win. And then they've got to finish the tournament with Pakistan. Like, they're in...
That's the thing, John. Even if they win this game tonight against Sri Lanka, isn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Sri Lanka tonight.
Even if they win that game, John, they're not going to get through. They're not going to win.
No, they can't.
It's just not going to happen.
They just can't. They're definitely missing the 4. And that's what I mean. Like, they played a 9, and they win. All well and good, okay? It's possible that they lose, but they win. All well and good. Then they got to play India and Australia in a row, which at this point in time, you have to say they're definitely not going to just lose. They're going to get demolished. They're going to get smashed, which is going to put all of their confidence really low. They know that they've missed the 4. They know that they've had the worst showing in their World Cup. They know that they've lost to Afghanistan, and then they have to play Netherlands. Yeah, then they're going to have to play Netherlands, who's the other who beat South Africa. Their confidence, their mindset's going to be all over the shop, and then they've got to play Pakistan to finish the tournament. They're going to be like, we've got to finish well, but who cares?
You don't make a top 4, no one's going to care, John.
Yeah, so they're like I said, their road is hellfire and death. And you just know the English press is going to hammer them so badly as well, which would always, if I was any English athlete, that would always be...
it's always a funny thing to see that UK tabloid pile-on after England suffer defeats in
Australia's
cricket.
pretty bad, they hammered Rugby Union a bit. But then
not as bad as those English tabloids.
We quickly forget about it. But England there'll be news about this.
Hammer you.
It'll be no matter what England does for the rest of the year, every news article will be, but remember the World Cup. England have beat this team in cricket, but remember the World Cup. So, that's got to be playing with their minds, and it's going to be difficult for them to even care. Even try, because...
Yeah, well, as I said, John, 1 loss and they're gone. Yeah. So, that's it.
And that's India for 100% with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
We don't have odds that far in advance because no one does odds that far in advance, but you'd have to say right at this point in time, it would be possible even for England to be paying like $14. They're a Netherlands-type, Afghanistan-type team right now. So Sunday's going to be really, not so interesting, but funny. When India play England, I want to see who bats first. I might give that a bit of a watch. Afghanistan versus Sri Lanka is Monday, and as we discussed the other day, we're not going to preview Afghanistan versus Sri Lanka on Monday because of the timing.
Yeah.
This is another one that Afghanistan can win.
Yeah.
I mean, Afghanistan can't make the 4.
But they can play spoiler, John. Yeah. And they're doing a damn good job of it too.
I think they can get this
wins
one.
Over Pakistan and England.
I can't wait to see the odds for it. Because Sri Lanka and Pakistan, although they're not the same quality of team, Pakistan is a better quality of team than Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Both of them are coin flips, but Pakistan is a better team, and they beat Pakistan and ran down that 282. I can't imagine Sri Lanka setting a better target than Pakistan.
Yeah, and if you can beat Pakistan and England, you can beat Sri Lanka, John.
Exactly.
That's it.
So Afghanistan's also got to play South Africa, which is going to be hilarious on 10th of November. Just oh my God, what target are they going to set? So is there any cricket news? No,
Yeah, I actually did add.
Travis said might be back. That was the only news I had.
I did add something to the rundown there, John. So, John, Johnny Bairstow hasn't let go of this Alex Carey stumping from the Ashes. So
my eyes are rolling, but also not just my eyes, my whole head.
Yeah. So there's a book coming out, John. It's titled, if you would ever bother reading it, it's titled "Bazball: The Inside Story of a Test Cricket Revolution." Oh yeah, a revolution which saw you not win the Ashes yet again. Yeah, that's a great revolution. Apparently that'll be available on shelves shortly, John, if you can.
How did he bang that out quickly? Is it a pamphlet?
So there's some excerpts from Bairstow in the book, John, and I'll give you a little taste of this riveting reading. He says, "The decision was that I was out and I moved on. I've not brought it up since, except when I brought it up in this book."
Right now.
Yes. I've kept quiet, apparently. If that's how they want to go about it and win a cricket game, then so be it. You don't want that filtering down to kids' cricket. It's the old, I don't bring it up until I bring it up, John.
If you say I don't bring it up, it's because you're bringing it up.
Yeah.
Dude. Come on, mate.
And John...
Nobody cares.
Now that we're on the subject of... I would have thought, John, that England have enough problems in the World Cup at the moment that Johnny Bairstow, who's a member of their squad, would need to focus on.
Is he releasing this at an opportune time to avoid the fact that, just as we just said, they're going to get hammered?
Yeah, well, they're trying to distract from their World Cup failings at the moment, John. But, John, I'm going to give you a little rundown. These are Ashes series since 2017-18, John. These are the results. So, 2017-18 in Australia. Australia won 4-0. Only 4-0 in a 5-test series.
That's ridiculous.
2019 in England, it was 2-2 and Australia retained the Ashes. So 2-2 in 2019, Australia retained. 2021-22, Australia won 4-0 again, John. 2023, 2-2, Australia retained the Ashes, John. So when they come out here for the Ashes, they get hammered, John. And even when we go over there, they can't even beat us in their own backyard. It's no wonder they're bringing up these little things like the Bairstow stumping by Alex Carey, John. When you can't win these matches, of course you're going to bring up these sorts of distractions.
Do you realise
focus on them?
A test match is 5 days of cricket? And if you really think that stumping has any effect on... And not only 5 days of cricket, but 4 tests of 5 days each. So 20 days of cricket. If you think that it matters, that one stumping, there's heaps of footage of Bairstow trying and attempting to do the same thing. It's very, very evident. If you really think that has any effect on anything, then you really are just trying to distract from the fact that England suck at the World Cup. Absolutely. Like, why are you still going on about it? It was months ago.
Do they ever win anything, John, or do they just complain?
Yeah, no, they just complain.
Seriously.
That's why they have the term whinging poms. Can't wait to put that one up on social.
It must really grate at them. As I said, when they come out here for the Ashes, we just annihilate them. And in their own backyard, in their own conditions, they can't win the Ashes. We retain. I know we didn't win the series, but we retain. Yeah. If you're playing away, you're happy with retaining.
Well, exactly. You can retain, win or lose. Retain is the same as win because either way you get the award.
Yeah, so England haven't had the Ashes earned since 2017-18, John.
That was in England.
Oh no, 2017-18 was in Australia, but the previous one they won in England, right? So they haven't had the earn since then. And we're now at 2023-24, John. So that's 6 years.
It's here next year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's 6 years they haven't had the earn, John, and they're not going to have it for a while yet.
They got to come here and
they'll come here and get annihilated again. And then, their best chance will be next time when we go back to England. But that's 2027, John. That's so far away from now.
when they lose next year, Johnny Bairstow can release a new book that complains about the stumping. And baseball isn't a revolution. First of all, bro, it's just this year, and it's not working in the World Cup. I don't know how you get a book out that quick.
Well, you look at English cricket, John. What are the two things they're measured on most? The Ashes and the World Cup. They didn't win the Ashes, and they are perilously close to exiting the World Cup. So this baseball is no revolution, John.
If there was a market on betting on whether England will make the top 4 in the World Cup, it'd be $500. So there's no revolution. There's massive failings, and to keep whining in a book about this stupid wicket that Rugby League made fun of. Piers Morgan got offended. Everyone's making fun of you. When everybody is making fun of you, it's time to stop. Like everybody thinks like I said, nobody cares. It's one event in 20 days of cricket. That is 4 months ago, where there's been like another 100 days of cricket and dozens of matches and. Just get over it, bro.
It's sour grapes from a bunch of sore losers, John.
Whinging Poms, man. Whinging Poms.
I got one other...
the Michael Clark interview. I read it. Okay, so first of all, can I just preface this by saying a current affair is, if social media is the toilet of the internet, current affairs programs are the toilet of television.
I agree.
Anyone who appears on them, like Michael Clark, is no better than basically people who whine and whinge on social media.
Yeah, so for people who missed it, John, I'll just run you through what sort of went down here. So Tuesday night, Michael Clark's had an interview on a current affair. He's tried to steer the chat towards a product he was trying to sell, which is a brand of lemon, lime and bitters from the Australian Bitters Company. But the journalist has brought up the infamous Noosa brawl that he had with Karl Stefanovic and a couple of others there, John. So I noticed that breakfast show with Dave Hughes and Erin Molan, which is, it puts you get up in the morning, you put that breakfast show on, you go back to sleep, John. It's that boring.
So breakfast television is not the toilet of the television.
Breakfast radio,
Breakfast radio is only not the toilet of the radio because you have to listen to it because it's in the drive.
Seriously, John, it's one of the most boring shows on the radio. So they've criticised the current affair for not. Apparently, they didn't give Clark warning of their line of questioning to him. But John, if you're going on a current affair, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think it's just going to be some nice little puff piece PR story? That's not how a current affair works, John. If you're going on a current affair, you've got to expect that they're going to bring up, trashy incidents like that Noosa brawl.
A current affair does two things. Chases after dodgy builders and does gotcha journalism against famous people. That's the only two things they do.
If you agree to go on for an interview, I'm sorry, they're not going to talk about your little lemon, lime and bitters product, John.
That's Pete Evans and some other people who know they see. I don't care if you agree or disagree with Pete Evans and his sunning of the anus and stuff like that.
He's into some crazy stuff, John. I know that.
But he was smart enough to go on a current affair and make sure that his team were filming the whole interview. So no matter how a current affair hammered him or cut the interview, he could then release the unedited footage, which is what you have to do if you're going to go on a current affair or 60 Minutes or any of those other toilet television shows.
Yeah, seriously, John, going on a current affair and expecting it to just be a PR puff piece about a lemon, lime and bitters company,
by the way,
and then complaining when they ask you about something that happened fairly recently at the start of the year.
Was it this year?
I'm pretty sure it was back in January this year, yeah. Some trashy tabloid incident. Well, I'm sorry, a current affair are going to ask you about it, John. That show, I'm sorry for getting off topic, John. That show with Dave Hughes on it, it's terrible, John.
The breakfast radio.
Oh, it's atrociously bad. He's not funny, John. It's just, I'm sorry. I don't know. How did he become, if he can become a comedian, then that gives hope to all of us. Seriously.
I remember watching him on In Melbourne Tonight with Julia Morris. That's for how I remember him becoming famous when I was like 17 years old. So like 26 years ago, he was on late night television as one of the regular comedians on In Melbourne Tonight, which is no longer on. I don't think Dave Hughes is funny either. Possibly when I was a kid, I did. Look, like I said, the only reason that breakfast radio isn't the toilet of radio is because it's commonly listened to in the car, and it's in the background, it's in the periphery. Nobody turns it on to sit and listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
People, the kind of people who turn on the wireless to listen to actual shows are the kind of people who still call radio the wireless, like old people listening to talkback radio. So any opinion that comes out on radio is basically just play music, bro.
Yeah, I agree.
The only exception I have is I love MG on Triple M. You know, so he can like do whatever he wants. I don't care. I love MG. He's the reason I changed back to listening to the radio instead of podcasts sometimes on the way to and from, like on the way driving in the morning. But yeah, the rest of the breakfast radio is just play music.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the kind of people that we are off topic, kind of people that are in breakfast radio, and it is like Carl Sanderlands and Dave Hughes and just ridiculously boring nonsense with no real opinions on anything other than trying to either puff piece Michael Clark or having some controversial conversation. But the sport radio, we'll go back to sport, MG always talks about sport. So listen to MG on Triple M. That's the best radio in the morning, in my opinion, anyway. We do have a cricket competition running right now, which is awesome. So head to smartb.com.au and there's a link there to click and sign up. When you do sign up, make sure you select cricket as one of your sports of choice, and you can win a Jacobs Creek cricket pack worth $800 that includes a Kookaburra Shadow 2 bat, which is, look, I don't know about cricket bats, but apparently some really awesome bat, and a bunch of wine and a beach cricket set as well. So yeah, all you got to do is sign up and mark cricket as one of your favourite sports.
Sounds good, Joel.
So we can move on now. Our next sponsor is Backer Winner. Each week, Backer Winner's racing panel provides you their best Australian horse racing tips and selections for the weekend's major racing meets. Backerwinner.com.au. Once again, with Melbourne Cup coming up, Backer Winner is a great choice for you to get some tips.
Cool.
And we're on to the Rugby World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So, third place, playing for third on Saturday. Yes, Saturday is England and Argentina.
So who cares event, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even think England or Argentinian people care. England's heavy favourites at $1.38, and Argentina paying $3.85. Both of those are with Betfair. We'll just do our elite bet check. Sorry, 1 second. How do I? There we go. I've got to click Rugby Union. We're on Rugby Union. I was on Rugby League. Argentina versus England. $1.31 for England. I'd say England's going to get it. If Czech pulls off the win here, Australia should throw their entire TV money deal at him to coach Australia. All $110 million on it.
Do they have any left after what they paid Sewaldi?
Oh. They got like $30 budget for the women's game. Buy your own tickets, girls. Buy your own tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd probably have to go with England, wouldn't you, John? I would have thought.
England, definitely. New Zealand versus
Looking
South
at those
Africa.
odds, yeah.
South Africa's defending champions, right?
Yes.
And they beat England last year. I don't remember. I might just check that.
I'm not sure off the top of my head, John. I'll run you through a couple of stats while you do check on that. In New Zealand, they got the most line breaks a game, John, 13.5 a game. They're in the top 3 for total carries and second for metres made as well. So New Zealand dominating a lot of the key stats ahead of this one, John. It does look as though
New Zealand will get it.
It looks as though they'll get the job
You
done
have to
here,
say
John.
so. So, yeah, it was on South Africa beat England in the last one. New Zealand came third. You'd have to say that New Zealand will get this one, though. The odds are heavily... Oh, not so heavily, actually. This is pretty close. New Zealand with elite bet paying $1.72 and South Africa playing $2.14. South Africa can definitely win it, but it's highly unlikely to win 2 in a row, especially with New Zealand in the form they're in.
Yeah, you can't go past the All Blacks, John. You can't do it.
Definitely. So we're not going to get too much into rugby union because nobody cares. That's why they're going to get $110 million for their TV deal compared to $2 billion.
Or in the AFL's case, $4.5 billion.
Exactly, like $110 million. But on to rugby league, which people do care about. So there's the Pacific Championships going on, as we know, and Australia get to play New Zealand 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, this is meaningless game number 1 for the weekend, John.
So they did end up resting players. We had the conversation the other day whether they would rest players or play their full-strength squad because they haven't played for a week, and they ended up resting some players, basically changed their whole forward pack around. Nico Hines is in. They're still paying $1.14 to win with New Zealand. Oh, that's the women, sorry. $1.40 to win with New Zealand paying $2.95. I can't see Australia not getting this as well.
Yeah, I can run you through a little bit of team news for this one, John. Yeah. So 5'8" Cameron Munster, he's in a bit of doubt. He missed training on Wednesday with illness, John.
Nico Hines slots right into there.
Yeah, he's certainly a possibility if Munster doesn't come up, John. Valentine Holmes, he's got a recall into the side. He served that 1-game ban, and he comes in for Selwyn Cobbo on the wing. Payne Haas and Tino Fasuamaleaui, they're going to be rested after being listed among the reserves, John. Their places in the front row will be taken by Jake Trbojevic. And Tom Flegler gets a test debut here, John. Good on him. Well done. Well earned. Ruben Cotter, he'll start in the back row. Liam Martin goes to 18th man, John. For the Kiwis, they're unchanged. Why would they change anything after that 50-0 win? Kieran Foran, he'll play hooker again. Farmanu Brown back to the bench. Brown joins centre. Matt Tomoko and Griffin Neiman, Leo Thompson in making his second test appearance for New Zealand. Charles Nickel-Klokstad and Joey Manu, they're expected to share time at fullback as well there, John.
You look at the various variations of that team news. Australia is playing not a second-tier side, but their second-choice side in their squad, whereas New Zealand is still playing their top side. It kind of shows how seriously Australia is taking the tournament when compared to New Zealand, which I think like harkens back to what we were talking about the other day. This tournament is so stupid. Australia's going to play New Zealand twice in a row. But if New Zealand can't win this, how are they expected to win next week? So that makes it really hard even as a fan, massive rugby league fan, even as a fan, to bother watching next week if New Zealand don't win.
Well, that's the whole... We went through it in the last podcast, John. That's the whole problem with the way the schedule was designed. Samoa have lost the first 2 games, 1 win each for Australia and New Zealand. Samoa don't play anymore, and so this game is a dead rubber going into the final. These 2 teams will meet again in the final next week. So, again, we don't even think that... We think, New Zealand and Australia should instead play a 3-test series. But if you're going to have this tri-series with Samoa, you need to structure it differently. Samoa should have been allowed to play the last game of the round robin to give themselves some hope of making the final, even if we don't think they would have made it. So now we've got this situation where this game is meaningless. Even though it's meaningless, John, I will run you through some stats ahead of it.
Yeah.
The last time they met in Melbourne, this game will be in Melbourne, was the 2010 Trans-Tasman Test. The Kangaroos got home 12-8. The Kiwis had 57 tackle breaks and 12 line breaks in their 50-0 demolition of Samoa last week. Australia's won 6 of their last 7 tests against New Zealand. No surprises, John.
When did they last win, New Zealand? World Cup?
I'm just trying to think when that would have happened, John.
They won the Tri-Nations after the World Cup as well, 4 Nations or whatever.
The last time I remember them beating Australia in the World Cup was in the 2008 final, John, and that's going back a long time. Now, Adam Blair and Ruben Wiki hold the record for most appearances for New Zealand against Australia with 24. There you go, John. Australia's biggest win over New Zealand is 58-0 at Westpac Stadium in Wellington in 2007. But as we said, John, New Zealand got the last laugh winning the World Cup the year after.
Yeah.
There you go, John. Some stats.
There was that period of time where that halves combo, right? I remember the spine actually that they had at that time. Can't remember all of the players' names. Whether they won the World Cup with it, and it was like Nathan Feen at 7 and Benji Marshall at 6, and I can't remember. It might have been Isaac Luke at 9. I can't remember. But and what kind of happened through that period is New Zealand would beat Australia if they kept that spine, but then it wasn't like their first choice spine, and they kept like changing it, and then New Zealand would lose. And I'm sure they won a Tri-Nations or a Four Nations or whatever it was straight after, where throughout the tournament they had lost to Australia, then put that spine in place again for the finals because of injury and won. And I was like, why don't they just stick with that spine? But that's what they're doing now. They got their spine that smashed Samoa, and they're basically sticking with it. And as I said, so as part of this as well, Nico Hines is actually throwing a bit of shade at Brad Fittler. He didn't name Brad Fittler by name.
Interesting.
But he did do it in his media. He mentioned that he was talking about that it's nice to have a representative coach that backs him and it gives him confidence and that knows that he would do a good job as opposed to other coaches that he's dealt with. And, Nico Hines has only represented one other rep team. Just talking about
I wonder who he's talking about, John.
Singing Mount Meninga's praises. And, it is pretty famously that he was wasted in Origin 1 and then dropped for the other two. And then he had some bad weeks after that as well. So maybe he is a confidence player. And I to be honest, it doesn't. I guess Australia's paying $1.40 with their second string team. It's not their second string team. It's the second string team they make out of this squad they took. And I'd like to see Nico Hines get some game time just because why not? Australia should win it comfortably. And then next week it'd be really hard to watch the final.
That's the thing. We hope this game's close, John, to maintain that interest in the final the week after.
And so then there's a PNG to Comores versus Fiji Barty on Sunday at 4 p.m. This is at Port Moresby again. So Fiji gets to play... Papua New Guinea gets to play in a home pro crowd. That's going to be wild for Fiji to front up to. I find it really hard to call this one. Like the bookmakers... Elite Bet, our preferred bookmaker, has Papua New Guinea at $1.36 and Fiji at $3.15. Bet with your head not over it. Gamble responsibly. I don't know why the odds are so wide. The teams seem very close to me. A lot of points in both teams.
Yeah, team news for this one, John. To be honest, the only player any of our listeners are going to recognise is Justin Olam. He is sidelined with a knee injury for the Comores from this game. There is no point in me running through any other team news because no one's going to know who any of the players are, John. So I'll move on to some stats.
Yeah.
The Barty made the semi-finals at 3 successive World Cups, John, 2008, 2013 and 2017. That's very impressive. Nene McDonald has scored 9 tries in 14 tests for the Comores. And cold hero himself, Mike Acevo, John, he scored 5 tries in his last 4 tests for the Barty.
Yeah,
so there you go.
See, there's so many points in Fiji. There's so many points in PNG. I can't imagine this is going to be a highly defensive game.
No. I wouldn't.
There's not a lot of defensive experts.
But we're not watching this game for the defence, are we? We're watching it to see some...
Once again, this is more interesting than that Australia-New Zealand game because we're going to see a lot of flash. Even if PNG run away with it and score like 60 points, you know that Fiji is going to score 40.
That's the thing, because Australia and New Zealand are going to be too structured. Yeah. These two teams are just going to play what's in front of them.
There's also that England-Tonga match, second match on Sunday at midnight, which nobody's going to wake up for or stay up for. England's $1.55 with Elite Bet, Tonga $2.42. I would hope that Tonga wins that one, though, just to prove everything we've been saying. That Tonga, Samoa and England should play instead. And then Jillaroos and Kiwis are playing, the Ferns are playing on Saturday at 6 p.m. That's the lead up to the Australia versus New Zealand men's match.
Yep.
Jillaroos have been rested, like they've had the week off, so this could be a curse. New Zealand obviously tweaked their team and smashed Tonga last week. Australia won 16-10 the opening week. Australia's had to have a couple of changes. Somebody's had personal reasons, a couple of injuries, but I can't go past that Brigginshaw Tamika Upton combination in this at all.
It's a formidable one, John.
Yeah, Tamika Upton's, as we allude to, future first female immortal in 20 years. Yeah, so I would say that Jillaroos are going to get this. There's heaps of rugby league news to get through.
There is, John. Plenty there.
And there's more from today as well that I've added into my notes. So let's start with Jerome Luai. He's been offered... So it's been highly publicised that Penrith only have $800,000 a year for him. Jerome Luai fired his management company however long ago, and they have this rule that I only just found out about where when you fire your management company, you're not allowed to sign with a new one within some time limit. So he's been representing himself, but he's just recently signed with some like scary management company that every club is scared of. I don't know enough about the management companies to care. And Penrith have upped their offer now to $850,000. Now my question on this is, where did they get the extra $50,000?
Another one of those mysteries of life, John, like the Netherlands beating South Africa.
So a lot of clubs are obviously circling for Jerome Luai. He's free to negotiate from the 1st of November.
I can think of a couple, John.
They reckon that he's going to be able to command $1 million at any other club, aside from Melbourne.
More than that.
Melbourne and Brisbane. More. But, there's supposedly the Dragons are interested. He might be that Ben Hunt replacement.
If you were Jerome Luai, John, what would you do?
Stay at Penrith.
You'd stay?
Yeah. Why would you not?
Stay there, keep winning premierships, take less money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
As long as he stays there as well, you got to remember, as long as he stays there, he's going to get picked for Origin, and he would have got picked for Samoa and things like that. If he goes to another club, that's the risk. People always talk about, like, he's only good because of Nathan Cleary and all that kind of thing. But he performed well for Samoa last year as well, right? That's the risk. If he goes to another club and doesn't have as much success, he's not going to get picked for Origin, Samoa, or probably will still get picked for Samoa, but not going to get picked for Origin. So we'll lose out on that $50,000 anyway. So yeah, I would stay Penrith. For sure.
I think, to be honest, I think as much as I'd love to have him at the Bulldogs, I think if I was him, I would stay too.
Yeah. Even for $1 million. Like,
It'd need to be, I think if he was going to leave, they'd need to be offering at least $300K more, at least, for him to, if it's anywhere less than $300,000.
Unless it was Melbourne or Brisbane.
Yeah, it depends on the team as well. Yeah. If you're going to one of the bottom sides, you'd want at least $300,000 more.
Massive overs, but or the Roosters, like these kind of teams, he could go to there and probably continue to win premierships and stuff like that. In all honesty, it's in theory highly unlikely Penrith will win a fourth, but we thought that about the third and also the second, and so he's solely statistically speaking, he's more likely to win a premiership by changing clubs.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that everyone, he's the one that's most likely to change out of that spine there, right? So they've already extended Dylan Edwards. They already extended whoever the hooker is there. I can't remember. And obviously Nathan Cleary's never going to leave.
No.
So he's the one out of that spine that can go other places. But if I was him, the only way I would leave is if I was going to one of those clubs that's definitely going to win a premiership in the time that I'm with them, like the Roosters, Melbourne, possibly Brisbane, that kind of thing. Because then he could cement himself actually as like really that top tier player who's gone to clubs and won 2 premierships. So yeah, I'm really curious where Penrith found an extra $50,000. I didn't know that was how the salary cap works. It was public. So who lost $50,000? Like who's going? I'll take a cut to keep Jerome here. I don't know. Anyway, another piece of news is Ben Hunt, captain of the Dragons, has expressed his disappointment in the verdict of Junior Amone and how he's upset that, this has come to his club and stuff like that. To be honest, as a Dragons fan, I don't want to know anything that Ben
I was going to ask you about that.
Ben Hunt has to say.
So he keeps saying he's still got 2 years to go on his contract, and he keeps openly saying that he wants to go home to Queensland. So it's a bit rich now, isn't it, for him to turn around and say this about Amone?
Yeah. Everybody's disappointed in the Amone verdict, Dragons fans and most NRL fans. But, out of everybody in rugby league, Ben Hunt is the person whose opinion I least want as a Dragons fan. In all of rugby league. It doesn't matter if I dislike or like a player or coach or media personality or anything. I don't follow this media personality's opinions ever. In all of rugby league, he's literally at the very bottom of the list right now. And as a Dragons fan, I just don't want his opinion. He should just shut the hell up.
I was going to ask you that, John. I was going to probe you on that as a Dragons man, a passionate Dragons man that you are. And I can see why you're feeling this hostility towards Ben Hunt. You sort of go, look, and he's the captain of the club.
Yeah,
for him to be carrying on like this, openly saying that he wants out of the club, and mind you, the club not performing well with him as the chief playmaker as well, might I add.
He's taken up that $1.2 million in the salary cap.
And for what? They're one of the bottom sides. What are they paying him that amount of money for?
And he wants to have a whine and say, well, of course he doesn't want to be there because they suck with him there. But it's just shut up.
That's the reality. There's two categories of good playmakers, aren't there? There's the category of playmaker like your Andrew Johns, Jonathan Thurston, who get you into the top 4 on their own. Yeah. There's that category of really good playmaker who don't have that impact on their team. And Ben Hunt is in that category, John.
Yeah, so he's individually brilliant. No eye in team, but there's 5 eyes in individual brilliance.
Yeah.
And Ben Hunt, there's no denying he's a good player. But
but he doesn't have that influence on the team. It's there for everybody to see.
When he's surrounded by representative players in Queensland and Australia, and that's the other thing, he's captain of the club, one of the very few club people that is always in the top representative teams, Australia and Queensland, always in it. And he wants to go on and on about how he doesn't want to be there and then express his disappointment in other things that are happening in the club. Everybody is expressing their disappointment in you.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's almost like, John, that he's used this as an opportunity to sort of show that, hey, I'm still a Dragons man.
Well, no, because even in the same interview, he again mentioned how he wants to go home to Queensland. I expressed my disappointment in it, but it's not representative of the Dragons. I'm a Dragon. I also want to go home. So that's not representative of the
Dragons. Look who's talking, right? Look who's talking.
Obviously the circumstances are very different. One was...
Yeah, of course, we make that clear. We're not comparing Ben Hunt wanting out of a club to somebody who attacks somebody with a hammer, okay? We're not making that comparison.
But all that aside, Ben Hunt should just basically close his mouth about the Dragons.
Yeah.
Get interviewed in the Kangaroos camp. Talk about your game coming up, all right?
I saw that on the rundown, John. I think John's going to fire up about this one.
Yeah, just shut your mouth, bro. So then, of course, we continue with the crimes. Samuel Afainu has quite the driving record. He's a 19-year-old, so that means he's had his driver's license for, 2 years at most?
3 maybe, yeah.
He's committed 7 speeding offence and 3 counts of driving while disqualified or suspended.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah, 3 years he's had his driver's license. You know how many speeding offences I've committed in my entire 25 years of driving?
How many?
3.
Yeah.
And he's already beat me by 7.
He's got you covered there, John.
But he's also driving around while suspended and stuff like that. Now, this is one of those things where that no-fault stand-down policy annoys me as well, because if the potential for conviction is over 11 years... I think it's 11 years, is automatically no-fault stand-down. Potential for conviction of a charge, right? So if you do something, or you are accused of doing something, you're automatically stood down and you miss 2 years like Jack DeBellin. If you drive while disqualified, suspended, keep having to go to court 7 times or whatever it is, you get to keep playing. He's literally guilty and bringing the game into disrepute. And I know it's only a driving record.
That's the thing, John. You can't sort of look at it as, oh, it's only driving. I mean, it's serious stuff, right?
Yeah.
You're putting people's lives in danger with that.
Speeding and stuff.
Yeah.
It is like the memorial for that tragic 4 children that were killed by a driver a few years ago coming up right now. It's like the anniversary of that. And so this is one of the reasons why I think it's in the news.
That's the thing. It's not something to be.
And the NRL, I haven't read anywhere the NRL is doing anything about it, to be honest. So that's another frustrating thing that's happened in the news to me. Not having a good week.
Because they have to deal with murder charges and hammer attacks. Maybe driving just doesn't register with them, John.
But that's what they get paid for.
I agree.
The Integrity Committee is meant to investigate everything. And they should do something about this. They should do something, whether it's fines, suspensions, whatever, because they will suspend people who are accused of crimes with potential long-term jail sentences. But they do nothing about a guy who has been guilty 7 times. It's 10. 7 speeding offences and 3 counts of driving while disqualified. Driving while disqualified or suspended is there's no accident there. There's no crime of passion or rage. Amon tried to justify it by saying, case of mistaken identity, guy annoyed him, it was angry, argument, that escalated, blah, blah, blah. They have this story. This is a guy whose license is suspended and he knows it and goes, I'm going to go drive anyway, and gets done 3 times doing the same thing. Look, I used to know a guy years ago whose license had been suspended for 13 years because he did the same kind of thing. It just kept compounding, and he kept driving, and everybody thought, you are an idiot. Don't do that. It's suspended.
You mentioned he's only 19, isn't he, John?
Yeah.
So you hope that the young man learns his lesson here and can be better for his mistakes.
Hasn't learned it the last 10 times, but you would hope that would be. And now we can move on to the Bulldogs, because there's a lot of stuff going on over at the Bulldogs, bro.
Yes, there
Josh
is.
Addo-Carr player swap nonsense is... So Josh Addo-Carr's had his much publicised issues, and the Bulldogs come out in full support of him, which we always know is an issue in rugby league.
The old full support, eh?
So he's on a bit of coin, right? And so there's the thing when all of his stuff went down, when they came out in full support of him, where it was rumoured that he was going to be let go, and then he met with the general manager, Philip Ronald Gould, and wasn't let go. But
I think Phil Gould had a look at the try-scoring statistics, John.
I think it might have come down to money. Because anywhere he went, they would have had to have paid his salary. And now there's these rumours of player swaps. So the silly one that I've seen is Ryan Madison for Josh Addo-Carr. Ryan Madison's a back row.
Yeah, that doesn't really work, does it? Doesn't quite work for me, John.
Bulldogs don't need a back row, first of all.
No, they do need points, John. They do need tries.
Ryan Madison is not a good buy, given his history of walking out of the Tigers halfway through his thing. Taking a suspension instead of a fine at the beginning of the year. With Parramatta that was this year, right? So he had the option suspension or fine, and took suspension instead of taking suspension instead of fine is not a team kind of thing. But then there's also all this interest in Josh Addo-Carr from other clubs that are trying to take him, and I suspect that it's even with the whole, we've come out in full support of him, he's met with Phil Gould, and we're definitely going to keep him. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Addo-Carr goes to another club next year, after 1st of November.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to find, I'm pretty sure, I mentioned the statistic, John, 27 tries he's scored in 38 games for the club over 2 years. So they're going to have to find those 27 tries from someone else. I know Stephen Crichton is coming next year. But as we said, they came 3rd last this year. They need more tries. They can't just be breaking even on that sort of thing. They need more tries.
They have lost, as it's ongoing to this, linked to this, they have also lost Kaola
Oloapu, yes.
Oloapu. He's
going to be out for 12 months, John?
Yeah, 12 months. He's a $500,000 player as well. He's apparently on $500,000. So they've already lost a big... They've already got a big loss lead.
Yeah, this big 5-year plan's not really looking to crash out at the moment.
I can hear the Dogs' excuses already coming. Come on, Oloapu was out. We had the Josh Addo-Carr off-field dramas.
What happened to the 5-year plan, John?
Well,
It's fast becoming a 7, 8, 9, 10-year plan.
we're 2 years. We're 2 years into it, right? I have this thing when I deal with marketing people, right? Where whenever you hire a new marketing person, the thing they'll do is we've got to change the whole website. Okay, so it takes around 3 months. So that gives them 3 months worth of work that they can blame. You know, they can hold off on the issues of getting fired. And then after that 3 months, they go, now we've got to start advertising. It takes around 3 months to get your advertising all over the line and stuff like that. So marketing, when you hire a marketing company, stuff like that. It's always this period. So it'll be, 3 months in to build a new website, 3 months to start their marketing and understand all, gets over their 6 month trial period. And that's what we've kind of been seeing with the Bulldogs, right? It's a 5-year plan. So I know we're not going well right now, but it's a 5-year plan. We're 2 years into it. When you're approaching the end of the 5-year plan, you've got to come up with a new 5-year plan.
Yes.
To extend it. But it's with a combination of Josh Addo-Carr, there's a lot of rumblings around him being moved on, and a lot of clubs are circling. Dragons one of them. And then player swaps, salary payments, everything. As well as the loss of Oloapu.
I'd be keeping Addo-Carr, John. Yeah. I would. You would hope so. I know he's had his problems recently with the Koori knockout incident and with that silly social media post about Israel-Palestine. But players have been kept in the game for worse offences, John.
Yeah.
We talked about Matt Lodge.
Todd Carney, who was just at an interview on James Graham podcast, went through it all. Everything that Todd Carney...
This is the thing, John. These offences are not bad enough for them to get rid of him, John. He's too good a player. We need to keep him.
Addo-Carr would be the kind of player that would definitely kind of issues where he'd definitely just go to another club. And
That's the thing. He'll just go somewhere else and he'll kill it.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of the Koori knockout, so the NRL is... it's been leaked, apparently basically notified every club that they're going to be reinvestigating whether people are allowed to play in stuff like Koori knockout and off-season boxing and stuff leading into 2024. Now, they use the excuse of because of insurance, but it's all coincidental timing coming out after the issues with Josh Addo-Carr and Latrell playing in the Koori comp but not playing for the Australian squad. Now...
Yeah, the mysterious injury that kept him out of the Australian team, but he still played the Koori knockout.
I don't like the fact that the NRL would take this away from the players. I really don't like the fact. I would think that what the NRL should actually do is become more involved in the Koori knockout comp. Give more money, give more players, give more attendances, give more promotion to it. It's entertaining as hell. It's on television. That's television... coverage. It gives them a marketing tool. I don't know. I don't see how they're thinking. Our solution to this Josh Addo-Carr and Latrell Mitchell issue is to make it so no player can play in the Koori Cup. It's not going to win you any fans. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, it's.
NRL, one crazy decision to the next.
You just don't know, day to day, John, you just don't know where the NRL news cycle's going to take you.
Yeah.
It's a wild roller coaster ride that never ends.
Politics to murder. So actually, there was another one, I didn't bother, I just gave up on all this NRL news. Was another one where another player from West Tigers or brother of West Tigers player has been done for participating in a home invasion. It just never ends.
No, only a home invasion, John. Yeah. Oh, okay, well, that's not murder or a hammer attack. So it's only a home invasion.
And he also only drove the car, something like that. It just never ends. Just a quick one on Shane Flanagan's actually gone into the Dragons now. He started his job. Which I'm happy with, and he's indicated that he's not going to panic buy for the Dragons because they don't have halves depth. They no longer have a moan, and he's not going to panic buy. But apparently, all the player agents are giving him calls this guy's off contract, this guy's off contract. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dragons, after that 1st of November, I've talked about before the dominoes falling. Is going to be Ben Hunt moved on, big money offered to Jerome Luai, Kyle Flanagan, Jerome Luai in the halves.
Well, this is it, John. I mean, I like that he said he's not going to panic buy, because panic buying just does not work. That's what the West Tigers do, and look where they are now, John.
They have done for the last 12 years.
Yeah. So panic buying is not the solution here. So that's good that Flanagan's giving that indication. The Dragons really just need to back him in here, John. They need to look at his record, look what he did at Cronulla, bringing them from a team that were down the bottom and on his own built them up into a premiership team. They need to look at that, and they need to trust him here, John, and stick with him even if he has a bit of a rocky start. They need to give him time. They don't want to do what the West Tigers did with Michael Maguire and not back him in and replace him and replace him and replace him. Michael Maguire, again, took South Sydney to a premiership. The Tigers didn't trust him, didn't back him in, and now look where they're at, John. The Dragons need to learn from the mistakes of the Tigers with Maguire. They need to trust Flanagan here, back him in, and hope, and I think he will get results eventually, but just trust him and things will turn out for the better here, John.
What they should be looking at, exactly what you're talking about, looking at the history with the Sharks and Flanagan. What I went over a few weeks ago, like, he's not the messiah that's going to come in and will be winning a premiership in 2024. He's going to come in, and the Sharks consistently improved over the course of multiple years. They came down to the last round of a Roosters game or whatever to avoid the wooden spoon. And they went from, like, it was at the time 15th to whatever it was, like 9th. And then the next year, like, 8th. Oh, cool. And then the next year, like 6th. All right, but consistent growth throughout the multiple years. Sharks stuck with him, showed him that confidence, and he built them up to a premiership with some PEDs. Premiership that was never stripped, though, Melbourne. So,
hey, it counts, yeah.
Yeah, I do like this. I really like this fact that he's not just going to go out and buy a half thing, but I really think in 5 days we're going to see Ben Hunt's been released. He's going back to Titans, Dolphins, something like that, and a big money offer to Jerome Luai. Probably in the Ben Hunt, like 1.1, 1.3 kind of million thing, which will be hard for Jerome Luai to turn down.
Yeah. I think the key with recruitment, John, the way I see it is you need to establish what the market value for the player is, and you need to make sure you don't pay over that amount.
Yes.
Once you start doing that, that's where you get yourself into a hole. Work out the market value, establish it, and then you don't pay more than that amount for the player.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anything else on rugby league? Always a long time.
So, John, this Peter V'landys, Joe Biden thing, I noticed you put it in the other news. Do you want to wait for other news for that, or do you want to go with it now?
No, we can go with it now.
Let's go with it now, right. So, as we said, John, the NRL news cycle is a never-ending roller coaster, right? And here's another element to it, John.
I don't know why I put this in other news.
So, Peter V'landys, if you can believe it, John, he's been granted an opportunity to have a meeting with, or he'd be in the company of US President Joe Biden. So he's the chairman of the ARL Commission, been invited to attend a state dinner at the White House as a guest of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Obviously, we've got this Las Vegas jaunt that the NRL are going to go on in the opening round next year, John, playing a season opening doubleheader there.
Keep an eye out on smartb.com.au for an announcement about that in the next one or 2 weeks.
Right, okay, interesting. So, John, something tells me that with Donald Trump as the betting favourite to win the US election next year, that's where Joe Biden's focus would be at this point, John. I don't think his focus is going to be on Peter V'landys and rugby league at this point.
Like, one of the things about this that is kind of weird is, exactly what you're saying. Why the hell is a rugby league guy going to meet with Joe Biden? But Peter V'landys, people seem to forget, is not just the chairman of ARL. He's also the CEO of Racing New South Wales.
Yeah, very high up in the racing world.
And horse racing is actually quite big in America, you know. It's actually like there's a lot of American races. I would suggest that he's actually going there more as the, I think, CEO of Racing New South Wales more so than the chairman of the ARL. You know, this guy probably has 2 business cards, and I guarantee you he would be handing out. Because there's a big revolution in betting in America. There's a few bookmakers that monopolize the American markets, and PointsBet famously just lost like millions of dollars trying to enter the American market but couldn't. PointsBet is part owned by some media companies. Peter V'landys has a lot of links with a lot of people from media companies, as well as horse racing. Horse racing gets a lot of its revenue from gambling, and Australian gambling companies are struggling to get into American markets. So, as much as rugby league people are straight away jumping on this, ARL chairman's going to, we got the Vegas and stuff like that. I would suggest that this has more to do with horse racing than and bookmakers getting into America than anything to do with rugby league.
It's a good point you make, John.
I think that if Peter V'landys was walk up to Sleepy Joe, as Donald Trump calls him, Creepy Joe, as the internet calls him, and talk about rugby league, he would say, "I don't know what rugby league is."
Yes. That's how it would go.
But
John.
if you walked up to Joe Biden and talked about the tax benefits of having more bookmakers, the examples of Australia, which currently has like 120 bookmakers, gambling advertising revenue, economy bonuses that gambling brings, and all this other stuff, bet with your head not over it.
Yes.
It was more to swing that. That's my conspiracy theory.
I think you might be onto something there, John.
Yeah. So that was actually why I put it into the other news as opposed to rugby league, because even though it is rugby league news, I think it's a scam. I don't know why Anthony Albanese, like, you got to think as well, like, why is Anthony Albanese taking Peter V'landys of all people? But it does come down to what I was talking about. Gambling, as much as there's a lot of things about advertising of gambling, which in some regards I agree with, some I disagree with, it brings a lot of revenue to your tax, country, advertising, businesses, economy, everything. It does ruin some lives. And that's the fine line.
That's why we say gamble responsibly.
Yeah, that's the fine line you have to manage. But yeah, like, if you go research the PointsBet failure in America, they lost something like $30 million trying to go into America. But America is dominated majoritively by just a couple of bookmakers. Probably the mafia. I don't know. Does the mafia still exist? Yeah. So that's my thing with that. Like, I read this and I was like, there's more to this than people think, actually. Like, people are saying. I'm sure a lot of the media actually know this as well. But, you know, we talked about in our early episodes, we are not beholden to any media organisation, any advertiser, any players getting inside information. So we can say whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, we can. That's the beauty of doing this, John.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's rugby league. I guess.
Yes.
So, one more sponsor, Premier Kitchens. Premier Kitchens Australia are the leading experts in kitchen design, providing Sydney homeowners with bespoke, sophisticated, and user-friendly kitchens. Go to premierkitchens.net.au. Already started talking to my wife about that kitchen remodel in the next year, unless interest rates go up on Melbourne Cup Day. We'll know just after the race.
You reckon you'll do it in the next 12 months, John, the kitchen upgrade?
Well, I want to do the backyard over the kitchen, to be honest. I want to make my wife calls it an RSL in the backyard. Put a couple of TVs up, I'll have a bar, I'll have some stools, and we'll all sit around and watch sports.
But if you do want your kitchen upgrade, Premier Kitchens, John.
100%. AFL, again, has news. So there is still some player movement stuff that goes on, but it's not that. Like, it's more discussions about trade, and having discussions about potential trades is not, like, really that. It's just all conjecture, and we'll find out in 1 month. Where, as I said, we'll have a full breakdown of where we think everyone's going to go next year. Yeah. But there is some news. So Brisbane Lions are lobbying for an additional game at the MCG.
You would have to wonder about that, John. They've only won 1 game from 13 at the MCG since Chris Fagan took over as coach in 2017. So why they would want to be playing an extra game there is very strange to me, John.
I think because they lost the grand final there.
They want more practice there, right?
They've got to overcome that thing. The discussion is how they're forced to go to Melbourne anyway, but they don't get enough MCG matches. It's,
It's that fine line, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's better to play and practice in a regular season game over a grand final, I guess. It was a weird news article where it was like, this is the thing. What's happening next year? Brisbane Lions want to play more.
It's very unusual that a team would make a request to play at a specific away ground like that.
Exactly.
But you got to hand it to them. They lost the grand final by only 4 points. And they're thinking, well, no, making the grand final is not good enough for us. We want to look at, how can we go better? All right, they've identified that their record at the MCG is no good. Well, this is a way that we could improve that record and hopefully, ultimately for them, win that grand final next year. And so kudos to the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, how do you get better at something? You expose yourself to it more.
Yeah.
In all sports, in all life, in all practice. And they've just gone, we suck at the MCG, we lose all the time. Let's go there more.
Yeah, because a lot of teams would look at it the other way and go, we don't want to play there that much because we're terrible there. But they've looked at it in the positive way, going, right, we want to improve ourselves at this venue that's in another state to us. And this is how we think we're going to go about it. We want to go one better next year.
And once they break that streak, the streak is over. They don't normally come back. Then it just becomes a normal standard game. So getting more games throughout the year. I think they had 3 this year was the complaint. They want 4. Or might have been 2 and 3. Getting more there is the only way they're going to break the streak. And to break the streak in the grand final is much harder than to break the streak playing like the Demons or something at the MCG in round 12. The draw isn't out yet. I just made up those numbers. So another thing that happened in the AFLW, which I've been monitoring the scores just as a bit of SmartB-ness. Actually, the AFLW is way too complicated for me to follow. There are 18 teams in the AFLW, but they each only play 10 games.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it, John?
It's like a conference-based system, so but even the numbers...
We need to get to a point where we get, 17 rounds, everyone plays each other once, I think.
So, Michael Pryor, who is the West Coast Eagles AFLW coach, is about to quit. This is according to Code Sports. After 3 years in the role, because last week after the match, so West Coast, they came last year, they're coming third last this year, so their women's team they're just as bad as the men's team. So last week they had to play the reigning premiers. And he's complaining about the draw. And so apparently you're not allowed to complain. And he's copped some criticism and possibly some fines and stuff like that. And as a response, he's had to apologise to the AFL and probably stand down and quit his job as coach.
Oh, boy.
So you talked about overreach last week on Monday with the cocaine thingy. Coaches now aren't allowed to complain about a draw that is clearly not good. And the AFL's going to basically, the conspiracy theory is the AFL's basically stepped in and told the West Coast, you need to get rid of your coach.
This is what the AFL do, John. They're bullies, and they make sure they get their way on these issues. A lot of so much of what they do is all for show. It's just a PR show. They take the moral high ground on every issue possible, and they do it far more glaringly than any other code in Australia by a country mile, John.
Yes.
And they as I said, in these matters, and isn't it, in a way, John, you sort of look at it and you go, would this happen in the men's competition? Would they come down and I don't think that it would, John. No, and so then you think, well, this is really patronising to the women's game that they think they can even come in and force the removal of a coach. It's just sort of like they're saying, no one takes the women's game seriously, so we can do this. Would it happen in the men's game, John? I doubt it.
No chance. The men's coaches are more famous.
Yeah.
They have more media clout.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. To be honest, he's right.
Yeah, he's right, and it's almost, and you look at it and you go, they're taking advantage of this opportunity here, John. They're looking at it and going, they're being condescending to their own women's competition. They're looking at it and going, oh, well, no one takes the women's game that seriously. We can afford to remove a coach. This would never happen in the men's game, John.
I don't think
It's
so.
so patronising to the women's game.
And the other thing about that is I don't think something like that would ever happen in the NRL or A-League women's game either. It was just such a, I just saw it pop up and I was like, I'm going to discuss this because I want to get Dan's opinion. It's insane, to be honest. And like you said, never going to happen in the men's game. And so it also shouldn't happen in the women's.
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't happen in any game.
No.
But this is a patronising exercise by the AFL. They're being patronising to they're supposed to be promoting their women's competition, bigging it up. They're supposed to be, at the forefront of that. But they're being condescending to their own women's competition by doing this.
They have their 18 teams, and there's 18 teams in the AFL, right?
Yes,
I don't understand why the draw doesn't follow the draw.
100%.
It's demented. Anyway, that's about all that's happened in the AFL as far as I know.
A lot going on for the off-season, John.
This weekend we have Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou.
Yep.
In the boxing. Now, the card is super boring and there's nothing else on it. It does start at 5 a.m. It's in Saudi Arabia. I would suggest waking up at around 7 and just watching this one fight.
Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I ain't gonna wake up for a bunch of non-events. So Tyson Fury is obviously the heavyweight champion of the world. He's got a 33-0 and 1 draw record.
Yep.
He famously won the world championship, then went off the rails, went on a bender. He's a gypsy king, got drunk, got fat.
I love how he sings songs after his fights.
He's a hilarious guy.
Yeah.
So he
great personality.
He basically disappeared from boxing for a couple of years and then was told by his friends and family, bro, you are going to kill yourself with how you're behaving. Get back to boxing. Came back, beat up Deontay Wilder, took his championship back. And Francis Ngannou is the predator in MMA. He came up through the UFC, knocking people out in 1 minute. Fought for the championship and got schooled as to what MMA is by Stipe Miocic, the greatest heavyweight of all time. Held him down for 5 rounds, hammer-fisted him for 5 rounds and retained his belt. And Ngannou went away, learned about MMA, so learned more wrestling, more clinch, more work. Instead of just being a big striker, he became an MMA fighter and then went back to knocking people out in 20 seconds. But when he rematched Stipe Miocic tried to do the exact same thing, take him down, hold him down. Francis out-wrestled him and beat the crap out of Stipe and won the world championship, but then had a massive falling out with the UFC over player pay, health insurance, promotional, everything, and so was cut from the UFC, or, they had an amicable separation.
One of those amicable splits.
Yeah. And so wanted to go to boxing because of the payday. He's going to get paid tens of millions of dollars to do this. It's a 10-round heavyweight match. It's an non-title exhibition match, so I don't even know if it counts towards Tyson Fury's record. And Tyson Fury should win it. You would have to say so, because Tyson Fury is arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. And Francis Ngannou is one of the best knockout people ever to exist. The guy is scary.
It's a big call.
In Joe Rogan's recent podcast with Francis Ngannou is a massive human, right? He grew up in Cameroon working in the salt mines. He's massive. He's 6'6" or something. He had to cut weight to get to heavyweight in UFC because they have a 265-pound limit. So he had to cut weight to get to heavyweight. He said, standing next to Tyson Fury, I have never seen a bigger human. And he's like, I thought I was big. So it's good. It should be a good fight either way. Tyson Fury, out of that 33 wins, has 24 KOs as well, which is not really heard of in boxing. A lot of boxing goes to decision and TKOs, but he's got actually 24 KOs, knock people out.
From 33
bouts.
bouts.
Tyson Fury is a monster.
Extraordinary.
So yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch. And happened yesterday. I've been talking this up since we started. The John Jones Stipe Miocic card in November is going to be the card of the year. John Jones tore his pec muscle yesterday and is out for 8 months.
It's a nasty injury, that one,
Yeah,
John.
8 months. Surgery, recovery, everything, 8 months. And so that fight has now been cancelled. No idea if it's going to be rebooked because both of those fighters were planning to, or kind of rumoured to be planning to retire after this match. So now Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall will be for a heavyweight interim belt. It's very disappointing. People have already started refunding their tickets, stuff like that, because John Jones is a draw, fighting the greatest heavyweight in the UFC of all time. It's very, very sad. It was like shock just before I went to the gym yesterday to train jiu-jitsu, and just as I was walking onto the mat, it popped up onto my phone. I just announced to everyone, and I was like, "Oh my god, worst thing ever."
Have you ever had like a pec injury like that before, John?
No.
Have you had any bad injuries in your jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, a few. I've done. I had a groin injury once that was not super bad. So I had a groin injury that was six weeks. The worst I've ever had was an intercostal rib sprain, which took 14 months to heal. And the thing with that is, your ribs take ages to heal because you breathe and your ribs... Part of the operation of your ribs is to open and close.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
So that would be I would go for weeks with no issue and then take a sip of water and get shooting pain through my rib. That was the worst injury I've ever had just because it lasted long. But one of my training partners... about 7 months ago, got the same injury as John Jones. So Big Ben, he should be back in November. That's the 8th month. That's how long it takes. Had to get surgery and stuff like that. He's got to come back, train light. Even though he'll be back after 8 months, he's got to train light for 3 months. So even though John Jones will be back to training in 8 months, it's 3 months of light training. Then he's got to get in through the heavy training. And you'd have to say this is possibly the end of John Jones' career. Because as I said, he was rumoured to retire straight after this fight anyway.
Been around a while, John.
Yeah, I think he debuted in 2007 or something like that. And he'll forever go down as, even though he cheated and was on drugs and had the PEDs and stuff, his goal, if he hadn't have been suspended, was to get that 50 fights and 50 wins. So he's currently still 37 or something. He's never going to be able to make it.
2007 he debuted.
Something like that.
That's back in the Ice Age, John.
It was something
how long
like
ago
that.
that is.
And he was the youngest champion ever. And he's 36 years old.
Yeah, right.
So when did he debut? I'll just confirm that. It was might have even been earlier. 36. So he debuted it, I think, when he was 18. So 18 years ago. What's that?
18 years ago, 2005, John.
Yeah, 2008 then was his first, actually, so I was way off. But still, 15 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
I feel bad for John Jones. I always say, one of the issues with him being classed as the greatest of all time is he literally cheated. He literally took performance-enhancing drugs.
That's a bit of an issue, John, just a bit of a problem.
And the thing with drug testing, if you watch that documentary Icarus about the Russian cheating, as drug testing gets better, they're able to go back and retest old samples. And so John Jones got done once, and he insists it was so ridiculous at the time where he said, I'm going to show everyone the direct evidence that I definitely didn't win. It came out and said, I know in my heart and God tells me that I didn't cheat. Bro, that's not your evidence. When they started enhancing their testing techniques, they were able to go back to as far as 1985 and find evidence of Russian doping. So you get done once.
It's nearly 40 years ago.
Yeah, you get done once. It doesn't mean you only cheated once. It means they could probably go back and test everything with more enhanced testing. But the UFC is never going to do that. Never in a million years.
That's why I could never... Sorry to get it slightly off topic here, but I could never work out why... Remember when Lance Armstrong won the 7 Tour de France's in a row between 1999 and 2005, I believe?
Yep.
99. Yeah. And then remember when he came back and he came third in 2009, and somehow they managed to convince, or they tried to convince us that when he came back in 2009 he was drug-free. How could somebody who cheats to win 7 times in a row then come back 4 years later, after I can't remember how old he was in 2009, but he was of fair age then, John. You're expecting us to believe that he came back and came third in 2009, and that was legit somehow.
So
I'm not really buying that, John.
I completely believe Lance Armstrong when he says everyone cheats, everyone takes drugs.
Yeah, I do too. But I'm not going to believe that he'd come back in 2009 and come third clean when he won 7 times in a row cheating.
Cycle racing is one of those things that. Like, I have this in MMA and jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu, taking steroids isn't illegal. You're allowed to take steroids in the highest level of competition. You're fully allowed. Some competitions, it's encouraged, because they want big buff dudes, right? So one of the things I say about jiu-jitsu and MMA as well, because MMA is, like, notorious for a bunch of guys taking steroids. People will say, like, do posts on the internet, like, who do you think is on steroids? And I always say to them, everyone in combat sports is on steroids, except for my friends and the people that I support. And that's what cycling is like. Because, Cadel Evans famously won, and all of us Australians will say, yeah, and he was clean. But, I'm not saying that Cadel Evans isn't clean, but the statistics would suggest that he's probably not. And again, you don't know.
We're not suggesting that he...
It is just that kind of thing.
That there was anything wrong with Cadel Evans' win?
I think, but Cadel Evans, everybody in cycling is on steroids except for the players what are they called, cyclists, that I support, which is Cadel Evans. So he's the only one who's not. Everyone else is. So, that's what I mean. That Icarus documentary is really good. It's about the Russian doping. How he got into that is he started out specifically for cycling. He was going to do a clean race, fully clean, and then find an expert to find out how to cheat and take steroids and do a dirty race and see what the difference is. He didn't win either. But he definitely improved, right? He actually definitely improved his times and stuff like that. And so the assertion, is basically that it's probably likely that everyone who still beat him was also cheating. But he came across was referred to a guy that was who could help him cheat, that ended up being the head of the Russian anti-doping authority, who explained to him how Russia cheated all the time at every Olympics for the history of the world. The documentary is really good. Totally suggest anyone who loves sport look at it. And then you'll understand what I'm talking about when I say, everyone is dirty, except for the teams that I support. Because, in that Russian Olympic thing, the only Russian Olympians that weren't on steroids were the figure skaters, because it made them too muscly.
Yeah.
So it made them ugly, and so you get marked down on full figure skaters are beautiful people, male and female. It's a really good documentary. Everyone should watch it. We can just quickly go over the A-League. It was a segue, but it's still sport relevant. It's going to give great social media content. Quickly go over the A-League fixtures. Brisbane Roar is playing Sydney FC on Friday. Tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow. That's the Australia Cup final rematch, which Sydney FC won. Now, Brisbane Roar...
Chance for Brisbane Roar to get revenge.
Yeah, given last week's results as well, Sydney FC going down 2-0, Brisbane Roar getting a draw. Sydney FC better win, because coming off that 2-0 loss, they need to prove that they still have form. Saturday is Phoenix versus Glory, and the Wanderers versus Western United. And Sunday is Central Coast versus Macarthur, Melbourne Victory versus Newcastle Jets, and Adelaide United versus Melbourne City. I am organising a A-League soccer expert guest to come onto our podcast and explain soccer to us.
Great.
And give everyone...
That'll be very helpful.
Yeah, so he loves the EPL, bunch of South American leagues and stuff like that, and he'll know who the players are. So just before we get to other news, SmartB news and social media comments, Parker's Cellar allows fellow wine lovers to access unrivaled pricing on their favourite wines with the added convenience of bottles with free delivery direct to your door. parkerscellars.com.au. I have purchased some wine from there.
Nice one,
great,
John.
Great website. Head to it if you love wine. Yep. So our other news we already talked about. Peter Vlandis?
I do have some other news here, John.
Good. Because I've got one too. If you steal mine, I'm going to be so upset. Let's see.
Okay. Tennis United Cup.
No, yep, go for it.
Okay. So I did steal it from you once. I don't want to do it again, John.
I thought I'd scooped you.
So, John, I just wanted to run through the players who are going to go in this United Cup before the Australian Open. It's sort of been released, who's playing for who. I thought I'd just run through some of the notables here, John. So the group stage will be held from December 29 to January 5. The finals will be held January 6 and 7 in Australia, obviously, before the Australian Open. So some of the top players to be involved, John. Australia's top player will be Alex de Minaur. Poland will have Igor Swiatek. Novak Djokovic, of course, Serbia, the superstar himself. John. Canada will have Felix Auger-Aliassime. Germany will have Alexander Zverev. And Norway will have Casper Ruud. So there's some of the superstars who will be involved in the United Cup. John.
Where is that played?
Oh, it's played all around the country,
okay,
John. Yeah,
cool.
so I think some of it's in Sydney. I think some of it might be in Perth, some in Brisbane. It's not in Melbourne because Melbourne's got the Australian Open, obviously. But yeah, it's scattered around, John. So that's something to look forward to.
Nick Kyrgios would want to jump into that to get some.
Yeah, John, to be honest, John, don't know where Nick's at the moment, but we would like to see him back, John.
So
he does bring. I know people either love him or hate him, but he does bring some theatre to the court, John. He fills stadiums. He gets people talking about the sport. It is hard sometimes when you work as a tennis coach, as I do, and you got to tell kids not to throw their racket like Nick Kyrgios does. But he does bring interest to the sport, John. Well, it has to be said.
They've already said that he's going to play in the Australian Open, but yeah, I would expect him to want to jump in and get. He hasn't played. He's only played once this year.
He's just not getting out on the court at the moment, John. It's disappointing because he had that such a good year in 2022 where he made the Wimbledon final and he pushed Novak Djokovic to 4 sets in that Wimbledon final. Yeah. So we just wanted to see some momentum after that. We just haven't got that, John, because he just hasn't been able to get out on the court.
I know he injured his wrist, but yeah, I just wish he'd try. Just try. You know, he doesn't try.
That's the annoying thing, John. Like he says, he openly says sometimes that he doesn't try, but you have to try, John. It's part of life, you know. You can't not try. Just have a go, and the ability. We all know the ability's there, John. He made a Wimbledon final.
He got to 13th in the world without trying. But one of the things with about that, like, if tennis is your job, there's so much money in tennis. So if you get to that point without trying, you don't really, if your main focus is money, you don't really need to try any further.
That's the problem, but wouldn't he, I mean, it's not about the money, is it? Like, we'd love to see him win a major. Just win one major. We'd love to see him win a major.
His main motivation is too much wrapped up in tennis as a moneymaker as opposed to tennis as a legacy. Like, Novak Djokovic.
Like Bernard Tomic as well. Not that I'm putting Kyrgios in Bernard Tomic's category, but
they used to be together, but now
Bernard Tomic's another example of what you're talking about.
You know, Novak Djokovic, guys like Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Andy Murray, Roger Federer, these older gentlemen, they made all of their money. Yeah. They made more money than they will ever need, and so the fact that they kept playing, you can say their motivation is legacy.
That's the thing.
Sport.
All those players you just mentioned, John, got to a point a long time ago where they're never going to need to work another day in their lives. So obviously money's not their motivation. It's legacy.
Leighton Hewitt.
Yeah, another example. Winning big tournaments. It's about their legacy now. It's about records, leaving their mark, a long-lasting mark. It's the thing. It's not always about the money, John.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of, based on the behaviour of some of these younger, or not even younger, some people, especially in tennis. Golf is the same because there's a lot of money in golf, like a lot of money in golf, where you see some of the athletes get to a certain point where they've won a bit of money and then they just don't participate as well anymore. And then that's less about motivation of legacy. Look, if you want to play a sport, in reality, if you want to go really far, your number one motivation actually has to be legacy. No, nothing to do with money.
100%. Yeah. I do have one more, John. I hope I don't scoop you here. An update on the SAS Australia show?
Oh, no.
Okay, I haven't. Thank you. All right. So, John, this show, I know you're not a fan of free-to-air television. You've mentioned that before.
It's only about the ads, man.
But if you record it and then fast-forward the ads, that could be an idea. But anyway, this SAS Australia show, John, this is box office television. For me, it's by far the best show on free-to-air TV at the moment. Well, it's the only show I watch on free-to-air TV.
Not a high bar to set.
Yeah,
but I actually, like I said, I do like SAS.
It's gripping television, John. It's get the popcorn out and must-see viewing. I thought I'd just give you a bit of an update on where it's at, John. So, of the sports stars on the show, Anthony Mundine voluntarily withdrew. Boyd Cordner was medically withdrawn, as we've talked about. Jason Ackermanis voluntarily withdrew. I think he might have just faked an injury to get out of the show, John. Peter Boll voluntarily withdrew. Stephanie Rice and very bravely tried to carry on, but she was medically withdrawn from the show. She dislocated her shoulder.
Oh.
But she did not want to quit, John. She was prepared to keep going, but the chief instructor, Ant Middleton, made the decision to pull her out of the show.
Talked about dislocated shoulders before.
Another like the torn pec. Very painful injury. So the remaining sports stars on the show, John. Abby Holmes, AFL field commentator, AFLW legend. She's doing a great job on the show, John. She is a very consistent performer, doing well in all the tasks. She's really stood up on the show, John. Very good performance. Mahalia Murphy, a cross-code superstar, has represented Australia in both Rugby League and Rugby Union. Doing a great job on the show, still going. And Matthew Mitchum, John, the diving superstar who won gold at the Beijing Olympics in 2008. His honesty in the interrogations on the show has been admirable, John. It's been just gripping television to watch how honest he's been. He came clean in the interrogations on the show, John. He admitted to being a person who lies a lot. Openly admitted it. Among some other things, which I won't go to.
But how do you know he wasn't lying about that?
But, we've all got things in life we regret, John. But for him to be able to admit that on national TV, I think it's very courageous. I've got great respect for him after watching that on the show. It's the chief instructor on the show, Ant Middleton. He's a sensational talent on the show, John. It's just gripping television, this show.
Yeah, I saw a thing about Anthony Mundine I was going to bring up a couple of weeks ago that I forgot, where he once again talked about that the tour that didn't exist that he was left out of. He goes on and on.
Seemed to have a bit of revisionist history there, the man.
He goes on and on and on about it, how he was left out of a Kangaroos tour of England in whatever year it was, where they took 42 players, and he was left out because of racism and whatever. But the Kangaroo Tour didn't exist, and they've never taken 42 players to England. So
yeah, just a couple of little things that were wrong with his recount, John.
Oh God, I can't believe he pulled out though. Like that's he's talking always about how he never quits and stuff like that. Looks like he quit, Chock.
That's the thing, John. I don't know how you feel about him, but I've got a bit of a soft spot for the man. I don't know. He's always entertaining.
I love anyone who's a character, man.
He's a character. He's a personality. Achieved great things in both sport, in rugby league and in boxing. Got to the top of both sports. I think a lot of it, John. Is a show for the cameras.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of it was a show to sell his fights, and I think a lot of the time he wanted to be the guy people hated to boost publicity for himself and get more pay-per-views for his fights.
The thing about Anthony Mundine for me is whenever he was fighting or playing against any other country's representative, I wanted him to win. Anytime he was fighting against another Australian, I wanted him to lose. And it was the same. When he was playing for the Dragons, I wanted him to win. Every single time. 100% of the time. And he went to Brisbane, Was it Brisbane?
Yeah, in the Super League year, yeah.
When he was playing for Brisbane, I wanted him to lose every single time. Not just because I hate Queensland and I hate Brisbane, but also because I just wanted Anthony Mundine to lose. And he went to the worst possible team he could possibly...
But sport needs these villains, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Every pantomime show needs a villain, right?
They need to have
Not everybody can be the good guy.
And they need to have sometimes douchey characters. But yeah, if I met Anthony Mundine, he's the kind of guy I'd love to talk to.
Yeah, and I think he'd be a really nice bloke.
And I think like actually, you know, so love it or hate it as a Bulldogs fan, I think the way he supported Sonny Bill was really amazing. Obviously, what Sonny Bill did wasn't good, but the way he supported Sonny Bill and you know, Sonny Bill got to where he was because of the support of Anthony Mundine. There was a lot of spite in it because Anthony Mundine hates rugby league, rugby league organisations. But you know, that's the kind of thing like where you could say like he went out on a limb for his friend, and you know, that's actually the kind of guy he is. So yeah, but seriously, I still wanted him to get his head punched in every time he was fighting.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you know, as you can imagine, at the time Sonny Bill walked out, I was ropeable, John, as you can probably imagine. But I can see where Mundine, you know, where he was coming from at the time.
So then some other news that you
Yes.
didn't... so I read this. Like I go on about this actually a lot on social media. Ellie Carpenter, the Matildas player, she's still getting targeted by trolls on social media over that one mistake she made in that England-Australia final.
It's no good, John.
So I reckon she had a great tournament overall in the thing, as the Matildas did. But, like, Matildas lost 3-1. You know, 3-1. It wasn't... It was one of those things where it wasn't...
And this was a couple of months ago, John.
Yeah, it was
still
like
be going
July
about...
or something like...
And who are these people criticising her, John? What have they ever done with their lives? Who are they to criticise her like that and still be trolling her on social media this long after the event? These social media trolls need to get a life, John.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, these are kind of cowards that would never say anything in real life. Now, I have this saying I say where it's like, there's so many cowards on social media that would never say anything like that in real life. I say stuff on social media, and if you confront me about it, I'll cower and whimper like a coward. But at least I'll say it. But it was one mistake in the 71st minute. Yes, it did, you know, cause England to get ahead, but Australia never looked like winning that match, you know. An amazing goal by Sam Kerr, solo effort. It was phenomenal, you know. It's the kind of thing you still talk about, and that's the kind of thing we should still be talking about. What didn't change the fact that England were always going to win that game. And they ended up winning, and then people still blame Ellie Carpenter months and months later and still troll on social media. Athletes should be allowed to, famous people should be allowed to be on social media. They shouldn't have to close their social media.
She shouldn't. I hope she doesn't have to close her social media down because of this, John.
Absolutely.
It's just, it's as we said in our last podcast, John, social media is the toilet of the internet.
Yeah.
And thanks, Tom from MySpace, for creating the monster.
Making it popular.
Yeah, and Mark Zuckerberg hasn't exactly helped the situation either, John.
What's Larry Page from Google? You're all terrible people.
Yes.
And you know, just you mentioned him a few weeks ago, Ange Postecoglou. So Tottenham sit atop the ladder with 23 points, which is a record after 9 rounds for a new EPL manager. So Tottenham smashing it. He was very upset. He said he didn't want to talk about it after the West Region match because their second half was terrible, and it was like I'd prefer to concentrate on the bad 45 minutes of football that we just played. But well done, Ange. Ex Socceroos, trying to remember the name. Socceroos coach.
Yes.
So that's all for other news. Just our typical SmartB announcements. Don't forget to buy tickets to Subversion Ascension. There's a new heavyweight belt on the line between the monster Josh Saunders and Mr. Bob Frias, who has no fear. We're also going to be running a Subversion competition where if you sign up for SmartB and select MMA or boxing as one of your preferred sports, you'll be able to win Subversion tickets to the first event in 2024. They do run 3 a year, and it's a really good event. Don't forget to listen to Club Prairie Fire, Michael Vaughan, Adam Gilchrist, James the Professor Rochford, and Ollie Silverton.
I never miss Michael Vaughan, John. He's must listen. If we talk about, you know, SAS Australia being the box office free-to-air TV show, Michael Vaughan is the box office podcast personality.
Well, I only listen to 4 podcasts, which is SmartB Sports Update, which I listen to every single day.
And ours is, of course, box office as well, John. Ours and Michael Vaughan.
Best podcast on the internet. I listen to Wrongful Conviction just to make myself angry because it's all about people who are wrongfully convicted. I listen to Joe Rogan when there's something interesting on, not when there's comedians or weird political stuff. And I listen to Club Prairie Fire.
You want to be informed and you want to be entertained, John, and Michael Vaughan delivers both in spades.
And, Ollie's all good. And
that's all right.
The professor.
I know I go on about Michael Vaughan. I just love
Michael Vaughan is definitely the star of the show.
I just love listening to him.
I'll send this clip to Ollie as well. Just remind him that Michael Vaughan's the star of the show.
And Ollie as well. Ollie's a superstar as well, John. And Gilly and the professor. Yeah. They're all stars. Yes.
And so then we did have one social media comment, which was on our competition, which I mentioned earlier for the cricket. Don't forget to sign up to smartb.com.au, list one of your preferred sports as cricket, and you can win a Jacobs Creek limited edition cricket packet worth $800. Sandy McDonald, who tagged Pat McDonald, told Pat McDonald, you deserve this. Pat, if you win, you deserve it. Share it to your friends. Sign up, win the pack.
We're not sure who Pat McDonald is, but Sandy McDonald knows.
I would hope so. Although I know, I have my brother went around and befriended on Facebook before he got off Facebook a whole bunch of other John Lewis, just as a troll. And one time John Lewis commented on his post, and I said, "Wait a second, I didn't say that." And then I replied, "Yes, I did." So maybe Sandy McDonald, Pat McDonald know each other, but it seems like it. And Pat, if you win, congratulations. If you don't worry. There's more competition. We'll always be running. So that's it for this Thursday.
Yes.
Thursday, episode 20 in the bag. See everybody on Monday. Have a good weekend, Dan.
Thanks, John. You too, mate.